Assalamu alaikum, Masa al khair al jamii, and welcome to our today's workshop, a very important workshop that we as academic writers and graduate students and also experts in the field, we really need this kind of workshop, which is about writing effective argument and research, presented by Dr. Summaya Hussain. So thank you, Dr. Summaya, for taking the lead to teach us today about how to write an effective argument and research. So the floor is yours. You may start now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basim. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight. I'm not going to teach anything, Dr. Basim. I'm gonna learn from you a lot. Definitely, everybody has got something to contribute. But thank you so much for the nice compliment. Okay, so what do I have for you tonight? Okay, right. Okay, so these are my agenda for today. First, we're gonna look at some of the challenges faced by second language writers. And after that, I'm gonna focus on the author's stance and the kind of devices that expert writers use to sort of convince and project their own positions or voices or stance. So that is all about the discussion for tonight. Now, before I start, I would like my respected colleagues to write down your expectations. I mean, what do you expect to take away from our discussion tonight? Okay, so think of 1.2 points of what you hope to get out of the discussion tonight, and maybe we can use that later on at the end for discussions and commentary, inshallah. Yeah, I'm going to give you a minute to do that, inshallah. Okay, so I've got this list of some of the challenges faced by second language writers. And of course, it's not exhaustive. I mean, you may add to the list. I'm keeping my the chat box. The first thing I thought of is that the requirements for disciplinary writing for second language writers, the requirements are not explicit, they are implicit. Meaning what? Meaning our supervisors and our readers do expect us just to know them. Okay, they expect us to know them, and they are not taught in an explicit way. Of course, we go through academic writing courses where more focus is given to the linguistic competence of the participants or maybe the candidates. How to structure a sentence and how to conform to the style and how to somebody's mic is on, I think. Yeah, I mean the requirements for disciplinary writing are they remain implicit. What do I mean by that? I mean they are not taught, we are not trained on them in an explicit way. So we are just expected to just know them intuitively. And another problem is there is a gap, there's always a gap, I think, between what we know and our ability to write about what we know. So we know a lot about our discipline, say TESOL, for example. We know a lot about TESOL, we know about pedagogy, classroom practice, what is good for our students. But when it comes to publishing papers, we always have to sort of make amendments and we always get our papers back to us by journals saying that, you know, I've got to make amendments and I've got to pay attention to this and pay attention to that. Which means what? Which means this knowledge, this disciplinary knowledge is not communicated effectively because we don't have the tools, the effective tools to be able to communicate that. So that is another problem. A third problem I thought of is there is a level of rhetorical incompetence. And what do I mean by that? Of course, I'm not talking about linguistic competence because we are all efficient language speakers. I'm talking about the rhetorical competence, which means what? Which means, as I said in the second point, it means our ability to communicate our message, our purpose, what we want to say. Yeah, I mean, when we write a text, obviously we use the language as a tool to communicate and send a particular message. So the way that we structure that text and the way the choice of words and sentence structure that we choose sometimes do not serve the purpose that we sort of aspire to achieve. So there is a level of rhetorical incompetence. And also there is a lack of effective literacy practices pertaining to projection, of course, of author's voice, as we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk, this is the focus of our discussion tonight. Usually when we structure, of course, we structure a text and then we present it to a supervisor or maybe a journal or maybe a group of readers, etc. But sometimes, as I've repeated it, I mean, the message is not conveyed properly because there is a level or a type of vagueness. And what is causing this vagueness is that sometimes we confuse our readers by using different, by sort of jumping from one side to another, by using different linguistic devices. And these linguistic devices would sort of weaken the message that we're trying to convey. It weakens the structure of our text and the message we want to convey. So jumping from one side to another and confusing our readers is something that we need to pay attention to. So we have our stance and we should use the language, the linguistic devices and the rhetorical devices to serve this particular purpose, and we should stick to that. So these are some of the challenges that I thought of, and I would like you to sort of, my respected colleagues, to suggest anything that I have not included on my list. I don't know if the chat box is working, but I don't see anything coming up. Any more challenges, difficulties that we can think of as language writers? Any challenges that you in particular face when it comes to sort of writing academic papers and publishing them? You guys can hear me well? Okay, to be knowledgeable about the field. Yeah, thank you so much, Fatun. Fatun is saying to be knowledgeable about the field, to have the knowledge, to have the body of knowledge, to be able to write about it, obviously, yes. So how do we get this knowledge? How do we get this knowledge? Does anybody have an idea? How do we get this knowledge? By reading. We're all lazy at actually by reading a lot, reading and reading and reading. Yes, thank you for two. Thank you. Yes, by reading and reading and reading. Yes, reading is the only way to get information and to sort of update our knowledge and to stay knowledgeable and to stay abreast with what is new in our field. Definitely. Yes, yes. To have this body of knowledge, disciplinary knowledge, of course, and to be able to write about it. Yes, thank you so much. Any more challenges? Okay, so Mr. Saeed, differences between layperson and professional language is challenging. Okay, so the difference between layperson and professional language is a challenge. Yeah, I mean, the way I understand it is there's a difference between the language that we use in our everyday communication and the professional language and the academic language. Is that what we mean, Muhammad Saeed? Yeah, of course, definitely there is. Thank you. Yes, there is a big difference between the language. And of course, we talk about style. When we talk about style, we talk about the degree of formality that we should adhere to when it comes to academic writing. Academic writing is something that has its own peculiar language, choice of vocab, choice of grammar, choice of sentence structure. Sentences tend to be longer than, you know, everyday communication, etc., etc. Reem, thank you. One of the challenges is how to simplify the ideas, which is simple actually. I mean, to those who are out of the field. Yes, I mean, when we talk about writing, when we talk about disciplinary writing, we're talking about our own discourse community. We're talking about the community of teachers or community of pedagogy practitioners, language practitioners, etc. So we use the type of language that is appropriate for our own discourse community, disciplinary and professional community. So, and of course, we agree on that. I mean, each community, each professional or academic community has its own language that is shared among its members, and that everybody can, of course, understand easily. And Futun says, avoid redundancy in argument. Yes, that is right, Futun. Yes, I agree with you, because you know what I tend to do is I write an idea, I express an idea, and then I get a feeling that my idea is not being, you know, my reader is not going to understand me unless I repeat it over and over again. We have a lot of redundancy, and that is one big weakness in our writing as second language writers. Yes, that is a big one. Thank you so much, Futun. Yes, yeah. We keep saying the same things over and over again, and we just tend to feel that our ideas are not clear enough. So we keep repeating the same ideas over and over again instead of coming up with new ideas to add to the ones we have just, you know, and look at me now, I'm repeating the same idea over and over again. Yeah, it is a weakness of everybody, Futun, yes. Yeah, indeed. Look at me now, I'm repeating the same thing, right? Yeah, so we tend to have a feeling that the idea is you know, is not clear enough. So it's sort of redundancy comes out of that. Thank you so much, Futun. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Very insightful comments. Okay, let's move in. Right. Yeah, I want us to sort of think of the nature of writing itself. I want to start by that, because that is maybe going to lead us to sort of the focus of our discussion tonight. Writing, in my understanding, and I would like to know about your understanding, is not a one-way communication. We do not write to ourselves. We do not just write to nobody. We have an audience out there. We have readership. We have people who read what we write, right? And the texts are not objective. The texts are not faceless. They are not an impersonal form of discourse. They have their features, they have their character, they have their personalities. The texts carry out all that. And all that is actually embedded in the choice of vocab and the choice of language that we use and the devices that we employ to sort of make it look a certain way and make it communicate certain messages. And writing texts are not purposeless. Obviously, they are purposeful. We have a purpose in mind. When we sit down to write a text, we have a purpose in mind. We either want to sort of communicate the piece of knowledge that we have, share knowledge, or maybe open space for discussion, or invite knowledge from other people, contribution of knowledge from other people. Yeah, there's always a purpose. And as practitioners and as experts and as academics, we are expected to share, we are expected to sort of contribute to this body of knowledge of ours as a community. Yeah, so that is something that is expected of us, and that is why we have to do it. We have to discuss and we have to share knowledge and we have to invite contribution of knowledge from other people. And we have, of course, to contribute our own knowledge. And written texts are not contextless, definitely. They have a context. And when we say they have a context, we mean what? We mean they have something to write about. I mean, they reflect what? What do they reflect? They reflect the ideas in the field language pedagogy, for example. They have certain problems that they reflect, they talk about and discuss. They have certain problems they want to discuss, and they invite solutions for these problems. Yeah. So they have a context that they reflect. And obviously, when we talk about our own context, meaning language education, we talk about what the dynamic nature of it. So it's like we have problems every day to talk about it. Yeah. So in our context and everybody's context, any language practitioner in their context, they have a lot of dynamic topics and issues and problems to talk about. So they reflect all that. And also as academics, our context, of course, is shaped by the type of language that we use in our writing. It is shaped by certain conventions that we should adhere to. And our written text should reflect all that. It should reflect our commitment to the academic community. It should reflect our commitment to the professional community and the disciplinary community. Yeah. Okay, so written texts are not all this. In fact, they are a two-way communication, two-way interaction between writers and readers. So two-way communication between writers and readers. Yeah. And they are also a representation of commitment belonging to a certain community, as we said, or professional community. Yeah. And of course, they are an evaluation of reviewed material. That is, when we read literature, we're not going to just take everything and put it in our writing. We're going to sort of look at it, analyze it, evaluate it, choose what is appropriate for us, and present it in an appropriate way. Yeah. And also give a space. The written text also gives space to alternative views. We're going to acknowledge that other peoples have got certain views. Say, for example, we come across certain idea, I've got my own stance about this idea, and I'm going to show that in my writing. Yeah. But at the same time, other writers or other thinkers, other writers have their own stance. So I should acknowledge that. I should acknowledge that other writers have their own point of view. I acknowledge that first and then express my own point of view. So they are a reflection of that. They are a reflection of that. And of course, it's also a projection of my own stance and my own ideas and views. And writing texts are a persuasive endeavor, meaning, you know, I wanna convince you with my ideas. I wanna pull you guys on my own side and say that because of this and this and that, and because of the literature I reviewed, and because of the data I collected and analyzed, I come up with these findings, and these findings are the best for this particular context and this particular issue and problem. Yeah. So that is something to do with the nature of writing. Does anybody have anything to add to this? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's come to focus on the writer's position or stance. Yeah. It is taking a stance is described by Highland as positioning, adopting a point of view in relation to both the issues discussed in the text and to what others say about it. So we review literature, come across a lot of ideas that writers put in that particular literature. And then I develop, as I'm reading literature, I develop my own stance. So where do I stand? Am I in support of what the other writers say, or am I in opposing it? Argumentative to be persuasive, yeah, should be based on facts and supported by real experiences. I agree, Awad Faris, thank you. I agree with that, definitely, definitely. Yes, supported by real experience. I mean, in fact, when we write texts, we are writing about our own experiences. I mean, when we write, for example, if I want to sort of write about one of the problems that I come across in my own teaching, then I'm reflecting my own experience. I'm reflecting my own context. I'm talking about something that, you know, I have crossed as a writer. Yeah. And then I write about it, I publish it, I invite people to read what I've published, and then maybe they can contribute to that. Yes. Yeah. Okay, yes. It should be based on facts, yes. I mean, we review literature, of course. We do not, it is, you know, we have to read literature. We are required to, it's a requirement. It's an academic requirement to read literature and refer to it in our writing, definitely, in our texts, definitely. Yeah, okay. So what's a stance again? A stance is, according to Highland, is, you know, as we're reading literature about certain points and as we are reading what other writers have written about this particular point, then I develop my own position. I develop my own position. Am I in support of what the others are saying, or am I in disagreement with them? Yeah, so that's my stance, and then that is my stance. That's what I feel. I wanna, you know, I disagree with all what they have said, etc., etc. Now the second, the next move would be like to display my disagreement and using language to display my disagreement. Okay, so when I write a text stance, consideration of course is given to the academic community's requirements, definitely. Meaning what? Meaning I'm not gonna show bias, definitely, because showing bias is something that is not academic, and the requirements of academic writing, it does not allow for that. Yes, of course, I've got my stance and I've got my thinking and I've got my point and I want to display my point, but I should be very cautious with my language so that it doesn't show bias and it doesn't show extremity. So I have to employ certain devices to sort of convey all that in a way that is really cautious. Yeah. That's what Highland says about stance. And what do I have? Yes. So yeah, I mean, and I'm gonna say this again, that writers, of course, use specific devices to direct us towards a certain point. I mean, you know, the writer wants to guide me to a certain destination, so they're gonna employ language and they're gonna use discourse, they're gonna use linguistic devices or linguistic resources, as we call them, to convince me and pull me to his or her side. Yeah, I've got an activity like a starter, and it's just something that to keep the discussion going. Okay, so in this small writing, and there are actually two texts. Yeah, I would like you to look at the words, the certain words that the author is using to help us have a clear picture of what he or she wants to say exactly. Yeah, is the instruction okay? Are we good? Yeah. Yes, hold the point of view and defend it. Definitely, yes, definitely. Yeah. So for this particular task, I'm hoping that we can sort of pick out the words that the author has used to sort of help us readers have a clear picture of what exactly he wants to say. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to look at that. And please don't mind the medical terms. So any words amongst, yes, the most common. The most common, yeah. It is a general condition. I agree. The most. Thank you. Any more? Aggravate. Okay, usually described as. Thank you so much. Okay, so the first one is a medical term. I'm not gonna try to sort of pronounce it. And yes, in the sporting and general population. Okay, so we're looking for the words. We're looking for certain words that the writer is using to sort of help us, such as giving an example. Thank you, Howard. Yes, thank you. Such as to give an example. Yes, to be more specific. Yes, well done, well done. Okay, I'm going to show you the answers in a minute. I'm going to show you the answers. Okay, and we're going to discuss the answers together. But I have another piece, another part of it. Okay, so that is the remaining part of it. Again, we're doing the same thing. We're looking at the words that the writer is using to help us. Yes, it's a clinical condition. So the writer is saying it's not just any other condition, it's a clinical condition. Here. Wide variety. Yes, thank you, wide. As a result, yes, so the writer saying this is based on something. It is not just my own assumption. It is based on something. Yes. Systematic evaluation, systematic, using the adjective systematic. Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. I don't think it's in the answers, but I do agree. Systematic evaluation is not just any value, it's systematic. It is not like random. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so these are the words. Okay, so sorry. R is highlighted because literature says use of the present simple means that the topic is still relevant. It's not something from the past. It's still till now is relevant. So use of the present simple has a certain purpose. Yeah, it means knowledge is not from the past. It's something that's still relevant. Yeah, the most common, and you have picked on that. The most common clinical condition, it's clinical conditions. It is, of course, it has to be clinical condition because I think the first word is guiding because it's a medical word, it's a medical term, yeah. And then we have is usually. Now we have is, as I said about present simple, but usually the adverb usually means that the writer wants to say it's not like this is not like a single occurrence. It usually happens. The writer wants to say it usually happens. Okay. Okay, so when the writer says typically, again, the same thing. When the writer says typically, the writer wants to say it is not like just once. It doesn't happen once or twice. It's something that happens typically. It is just like something like naturally. Yeah. So it's like something that's widespread. So the writer wants us to understand that the symptoms are widespread, or these symptoms are normally this and this and that. And the word wide, the adjective wide variety of disorders. I mean, the writer wants us to understand that it is not just one or two disorders. It's a wide variety of disorders. Okay, so we have the word may, and the word may means the writer does not want to take responsibility. Meaning what? Meaning, do not quote me on that. Meaning the writer wants to say, do not quote me on that. You know, once the writer uses adverbs like may, or we call them hedges. We're gonna come to that in a minute. The writer wants to say that I'm not showing commitment to this piece of information. I'm not taking responsibility. Do not quote me on that. Yeah. So that is hedges. That is pushing away responsibility from themselves. And as a result, as you picked on that, as a result is of course, this is like signaling. It's like signposting language. I'm gonna give you a result of what I've already said. So that is signposting language. And of course, it's a result based on something that has already been mentioned. Okay, so we have is important, and the writer here, we've got is, as we said about present simple, and the word important, the writer is showing us how he feels his own attitude towards the problem itself or the issue being discussed. So if we say something is important, then that is how I feel towards it. And of course, it's the word important is because it's attitudinal, meaning it shows the writer's attitude. We have to be cautious with using words that shows personal attitudes, of course, in academic writing. So we can sort of, instead of using present simple, we can sort of use one of the hedges or the devices using for hedging. We can say may be important or something like that if we feel that it is important, but it's important to a certain degree. Yeah, but it shows the writer's attitude. The writer feels it's important. We've got the adverb of frequency often again, and of course the writer wants to say this is a normal thing, it's a typical thing, and it often happens. We have the word specially. The word specially sort of narrows down. The word specially, when we use the words like particular and special, we sort of narrow down the scope. Like I'm talking about something general and I want to sort of narrow it down, narrow the scope of knowledge down to something more particular or more detailed. Yeah, pretty much like giving examples. So that is also narrowing down to sort of an example or an instance. Okay. How do you feel towards this? Do you feel it's helping? Yeah, yes, yeah. Okay, so and that is why we have something called systemic functional linguistics. What is systemic functional linguistics? It helps us with discourse analysis. You know, when we learn things in an explicit way, it helps a lot. Yeah, when we make when we make conscious decisions about our writing, we make conscious decisions about the words that we use, and we use them carefully, and we weigh them, and we analyze them and evaluate them, then our message gets conveyed in a way that we want it to be. Yeah. Yeah, so we have to be careful. Every decision that we make with our writing has to be weighed and thought of and carefully considered. So we sit down and we plan our writing, but we do not just write and we say we have written something, we make decisions. We make decisions meaning what? Meaning we have to be conscious of the choice of our words and the structure and the way we organize the information and the way we present it and how we sort of connect the ideas, etc., etc. So everything has to be decided upon. Everything has to be decided upon because each and every word that you are going to use in your writing does serve a purpose. Definitely, yes, yeah. The language pragmatics and the flow of ideas, yes, all this, yes, yeah. Definitely, yes, yeah. We need to, a lot of considerations. I mean, when it comes to writing is of course, it's a process. There is a cognitive process before it comes out as a text. We have to think about it, and we have to consider a lot of things, and we have to make choices, and we have to think about it. We have to have conscious decisions about it, and that is why it's a highly cognitive process. It's a highly cognitive process. Thank you for telling me. Okay. Right. So let's come to the linguistic resources, as Highland calls them. Highland says linguistic resources, and we call them language devices. And in simple terms, we can say language devices for stance taking. So what the devices? What are the words that we use to show our stance from ideas and information? The first thing on my list is Hedges, of course. Hedges, we all heard about Hedges, and your supervisor will say, no Hedges, etc., etc. Yeah. Okay. So what are Hedges? Hedges are linguistic devices like what? So they are linguistic devices. Okay. Like for example, that indicates the writer's decision not to take responsibility of information. I think I made a mistake with the structuring of my sentence in here. Please forgive me for that. But I got carried away with my ideas like many writers, and that is why. So they indicate the writer's decisions not to take responsibility of information, okay? Allowing the information to be presented as an opinion rather than accredited fact. Yeah. So when the writer says, for example, this may lead to this and that, the writer wants to say, Okay, so I'm not taking responsibility. This is my own assumption, but of course it's an assumption that is based on reasoning. It is not just an assumption based on nothing. It's an assumption that is based on reasoning, and invite you, thank you so much, May might could, and I'm inviting you as readers, I'm opening this space for you for discussion. Meaning what? Meaning when I say this may lead to, I am saying that you as a reader may disagree with me and may have an entirely different opinion. And I welcome that. I'm saying that as a writer. Yeah. So it means, yes, I'm not taking responsibility, and it's not an accredited fact. This is my own reasoning, but of course it's a plausible reasoning. It is something that is based on good reasoning. Yeah. Hedges suggests that a statement is based on plausible reasoning, as we said, rather than accredited fact, rather than certain knowledge. And they signal openness to alternative views. I'm saying what as a writer? I'm saying it is, do not take it as a fact. You know what I'm saying, what I've written, do not take it as a fact and do not quote me on that. I am not committed to this. Yeah, but I am also opening the floor for you to have entirely different opinions, Yeah, okay. So that is what Hedges do. What Hedges do that in academic writing texts. Okay, so what are the words that we use as hedges? Okay, so appearance-based evidential verbs like it seems and it appears. When you say it seems and it appears, you are drawing a conclusion, okay, from certain type of information, but you are saying I am not making a decision about this information as finalized and as a fact. Okay, so that is it seems and it appears. And also we use mental process verbs like research suggests. So I'm taking the responsibility off my shoulders and putting it on somebody else's shoulders. Research suggests, okay, and studies indicate. And when you say, you have to be careful, because when we say research suggests and studies indicate, then you are going to quote these studies and this research. Of course, you're going to say, for example, Lancaster, comma, Highland, comma, etc. Yeah, so you're going to say who suggests the idea that you've mentioned. Yeah, so that is another hedger. That's another hedger. Okay, and modal verbs, like we said, might and may and could, and approximation adverbs like likely and possibly, yeah, and minimizers like somewhat or nearly, yeah, all these are hedges. They sort of soften and weaken, the weight of the information you're presenting. They do what they are saying, like, I am not responsible for this information, do not take it as a fact and do not quote me on that. You may disagree with me and I welcome that. That is what the hedges do. Okay, so far so good. That is right. Thank you so much. Yes, Awad. Yes. It's according to my own findings and thinking, and it is not 100% certain, and it can be discussed. Yes, thank you so much. It's exactly that. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Hedges, of course, we already said what hedges do to our writing. They sort of, they don't show commitment, etc. And of course, in research, in academic research, we cannot say one situation. Obviously, the findings do not apply to each and every context, definitely, because each and every context has its own peculiar features and characteristics. And that is why using hedges is important. Yeah. And of course, when I come across a piece of information in literature, then I have a certain attitude towards it, and other writers may have entirely different attitudes towards it, and that's why hedges should be used. Okay, thank you so much. And then we have boost tools. What do? They are used to increase the writer's commitment to information. And boosters can be achieved by the use of amplifying and intensifying adverbs like clearly, obviously, absolutely. That's when you are 100% sure. Now you have collected data, you have analyzed your data, like 95% of your participants agree on a certain point. You can say, obviously, most of the participants agree on that. You can say that because your data says so. Your data says so. Yeah. So that is, we use boosters for that as well. They are, and of course, it is not just my data. This is my point of view, and I also want to convince my readers that this is my stance. Yeah, so using the word obviously means that's how I show about my data. I'm quite, sure about it. I'm confident about my findings, and that is why I'm presenting it using the word obviously and absolutely and clearly. And yet again, we have to be careful with boosters because they may show bias or something. Yeah. Okay, so of course we have to make decisions of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, definitely. Okay. Boosters. Okay, and then we have code glosses. What are they? They are used implicitly. Okay. They use implicitly to achieve a finer degree of precision. For example, if an idea is marked as needing elaboration or clarification, that means it's important and it deserves focus and attention. So if you say, for example, in your writing, you say, well, this is a point that needs further elaboration. That means you're drawing what this is how you feel towards it. You feel that the readers should give it more attention. Or maybe you are preparing your readers to sort of to the discussion that is coming after that. Yeah, because it's a point that is, you feel it's important, and it needs explanation, and it needs attention, it needs clarification. So you sort of introduce it by saying this, it's a point, this is a point, or something is a point that needs focus and attention. So it's sort of signaling to your readers that they should be mentally prepared and they should be prepared to give more focus and more attention to what you're going to say. Yeah. Now, what are code glosses or glosses? There are two types of them. Reformulation is one of them. Like we said, we talked about specially and particularly because they narrow down the scope of knowledge. You talk about something generally, and then you wanna be more specific. Then you introduce that using the word specifically. So once you say specifically or specially, then your reader will be prepared to a detail, to something that is smaller and narrower than what you have just said. Okay, we call them reduction words because they narrow down the language. And we have got the expanders, the expansion phrases like in fact, known as, defined as. Once I see defined as, I'm going to expect what? Elaboration and explanation and definition. Yeah, I'm gonna be expecting like this idea is gonna be expanded and given more details. Yeah, and explained. Okay. What else? Okay, so paraphrasing. Yeah, I want to paraphrase. I say something and I want to say it in a different way. I say something and I want to say it in a different way. I would say that is, or I would say in other words. Yeah, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing helps me to draw a clearer picture of what I want to say as a writer. It does help me. Yeah. Because I say something using a certain words and certain language, and then I feel that my readers may be in need of more explanations, then I repeat it again by using different words. Anything that can, these words will help me sort of draw a more precise and a more accurate picture of what I exactly want to say to my readers. And of course, we have, for instance, for example, exemplifications, we call them, phrases like for instance and such as. And of course, we know all these words. All these words we know, and we use them in our writing. We use these words in our writing. But we have to use them, but maybe sometimes we sort of forget about the purpose, the communicative purpose that we want to achieve via using these particular words. Yeah, so we need to remember the communicative purpose, have in mind the communicative purpose that, you know, these particular words or other words or any words that we use in our writing, you know, achieve for and make our writing more successful and make our picture more elaborate and more precise. Yeah. So always have the communicative purpose. So what is the communicative purpose of this? Always think like that. What is, if I use this particular word, what is the communicative purpose? Is it gonna add to my ideas? Is it gonna tell my reader something entirely different? Is it gonna show my stance better? Is it gonna show my, you know, why my position better to my reader? So think like that. Think about the communicative purpose of the words. Yeah. And I always think, and I always say when I have discussions with my colleagues, that when we read literature, of course, when we write our master's and PhD theses, of course, we want to sort of impress our supervisors by the amount of reading we have done. And we list Highland, we list Swells, we list etc., etc., etc. We list a lot of writers and a lot of literature that we actually read. We read a lot of literature, right? But when it comes to writing, then we use that literature in a way that does not serve our purpose. That's a problem. I'll give you an example. So say, for example, my stance in, I am so much in agreement with using translation, for example, this is just an example. Say I have come across literature in using first language in classroom pedagogy. And I want to show my stance, all right? So I want to show my stance, and I would say, for example, Hama, for example, Hama says there's no harm in using first language, etc. It conveys meaning easier, faster, better, etc., etc. And then I go further down in my writing, and I say, was it Scott, for example, Thornbury proves that first language used inside classroom. So I use the verb proves, okay, to show a stance that's entirely different from my initial one. So using the word proves here will be entirely wrong. It will be like confusing my reader. So what is like the reader would be thinking like, where does she stand? I mean, why is she totally with Hama in saying this and this and that? And then Thornbury, who's against the idea, she says Thornbury proves. Yeah. So, I mean, we try as best as we can not to confuse our readers. You stick to your stance, you stick to it. If you're going to say something, somebody proves something, you're going to take from literature what proves your point. If you want to use proofs, otherwise use another thing. Use claim, for example. Say, for example, Thornbury claim. Once you say claim, and we're going to come to that, once you say claim, the reader will have a feeling that you are sort of questioning it. You are in doubt about it. You're not very sure about it. Yeah? So you're sticking to your stance. You're not confusing your reader. Yeah? I don't know if my point is clear enough, but that is, do not confuse the reader. That's what I meant to say. Do not confuse the reader by using different stances. I mean, different words that shows different stance. You don't bounce from this bank of the river to the opposite bank of it, you know, every now and again. And this will sort of lead to vagueness in your writing, and it's going to lead to confusion, of course. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So, and yes, I've come to reporting verbs, and that is what I've just talked about, the word proof here. Okay. So once you say Smith hypothesizes that such and such is the case, the word hypothesis will show what? Will show what? You guys out there?
Hypothesize, it means something I assume.
Yes, yes. But why do I use it in here? For example, I mean, what is the communicative purpose that it serves? It's an assumption. You're right, actually. You're right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You're right. Yes, it's an assumption. Yeah, it's a hypothesis. It's an assumption. I'm not quite, once I say Smith hypothesis, I am saying that this is just an assumption. I'm saying to the reader, this is an assumption. Yeah. And I don't have proof for it. As a writer, I do not have proof for it. Yeah. So these are one of the verbs that we use. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, something needs to be examined. Well done. Yes, good job. Thank you so much. Thank you. Makes a lot of sense. Yes, yeah. It needs to be examined. Yeah, what comes after hypothesis is something that needs to be examined. It needs to be analyzed, looked upon, analyzed, etc. Yeah. But if I say by doing such and such, Smith proves, then that shows my stance in here, doesn't it? The word proves shows my stance. What is it? I'm not a professor yet, I hope. Thank you so much. So the word proves. If I use the verb proves, what is my stance? What's my position? It means I'm already convinced, doesn't it? Once I make a decision, once I choose the verb proves, then I am convinced by what Smith has said. Yeah? That means I am convinced and I want to convince you. I'm already convinced and I want to convince you. This is something that has got a yes, 100% agreement. Yes. Yes, I agree with him 100%. Yes. Yeah. I'm already convinced by what he said. And now I want to convince you by showing you that this it has been proven. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That is right. Proofs means doing a lot of work with good results. Yes, that is right, Akram. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, yeah. So once I choose, okay, because we call this hypotheses and proofs and claims and declares and assumes, we call them reporting verbs, and we have to be careful with reporting verbs. Meaning what? We have to choose the reporting verbs that are appropriate for the meaning we want to communicate. Yeah. But I'm going to just say claim. If I want to say, if I'm in 100% agreement with Smith, I'm not going to say Smith claims, definitely, because that is not showing my stance. It is not showing my stance. If I say claims, that means I am in doubt, yeah, with it, yeah. And that is why we should avoid saying like according to. So if you say according to, if you say, for example, according to Swells, if you say according to Swells, what purpose does that serve? I mean, do you feel it serves any purpose? If I say according to, because a lot of people write like that. A lot of people say according to Swells, this and this and so according to. Does it show my stance? Does it show my stance, writer? It doesn't show my stance as a writer, according to. It doesn't show my stance as a writer. No. I mean, unless I want to say to my reader and my supervisor that I have read John Swells, for example. Unless I want to say I have read this particular writer. But that does not serve any purpose at all. It doesn't serve any purpose at all. It doesn't serve. So yes, I have read him, and so what? Where do I stand? Where do I stand? Yeah, where do I stand for where do I stand towards the idea discussed by Swells? Yes, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, it doesn't show my stance. I mean, I agree with you, Fatun. It sort of creates sort of vagueness. So, and so what? Okay, according to such and such, and so what? I have read literature and I'm using it in my research. So what? Where do you stand from this? Yeah, it's a quotation, yes, but Halima, we are also required to show stance, towards quotations. We show stance towards what? We show stance towards what we did actually. Yeah, towards other people's ideas. Okay, the ideas that we review in the literature that we read. It is a quotation, but what purpose does it serve? Because quotations have to serve a purpose. They have to serve a purpose, a communicative purpose. Yeah. Okay, so we are not just required to read literature and use it in our writing, and we're not just required to use quotations in our writing. Yes, use quotations, but where do we stand towards these quotations? Yeah. Not all of them. I mean, we don't have to, yes, not everything that agrees with us. I mean, we can also include something that we don't agree with, but we show that to the reader. We can also include something we do not agree with, but we show the reader that we are in disagreement with that. Yeah? Because in academic writing, we are required to sort of acknowledge other people's contributions, acknowledge other writers' views. We acknowledge that and then create space for our own views. Yeah, I'm going to give you an example in a minute. It's coming up. So, yeah, okay. So my point here is, yes, we read a lot of books and we read articles to sort of to be able to write a paper and publish it, and we use a lot of quotations from this literature, but we should show our stance from these quotations. These ideas discussed by other writers, we should show how we feel towards them. Are they, to us, are they just are they claims? Are they just assumptions? Are they evidence for something? Even if you don't agree with that, yeah, we have to. Yes, something like that, yes. According to Smith, results, the amount of something shows this and that. However, Stanley counter the results by providing proof in his research. But what about me, Fatun? Where do I stand in all this? What about me? What about me? Yeah, I mean, I agree, of course, with what you said. It's nice, but I also want to show my own. Yeah, I agree with Stanley. However, Stanley countered the results by providing proof. Yes, thank you so much. I didn't see proof. Yes, Walton, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Walton. Yes, yeah. Proving his research, yes. So I'm showing my stance, yes, Walton. I'm showing my stance. Okay. Right. And yes. And instead of saying there is no point, of course, sometimes we come across something that we don't agree with and we want to sort of reject it, and we want to say like this is not relevant and it doesn't like carry a certain weight. We feel like that, but of course we shouldn't show it in our writing. It's academic writing. It has certain conventions that we should follow, definitely. Yeah, we cannot say there is no point in Smith idea because it shows bias and total rejection. We can use a more balanced academic tone. Yeah, Smith's study offered some interesting insights because I am acknowledging what Smith, what his contribution to knowledge, and I said, of course, it has very interesting insights, but it has failed to do this and this and that to show the significance of this and this. So I'm showing acknowledgement of others' works, the value of the others' works, but at the same time, I'm creating a gap for new ideas to come, and I'm also creating a space for discussion. Like this is not a final thing and it's not a verdict. I'm not like passing a verdict on what Smith has said in his study, but there is a shortcoming in study, which is, inviting the reader to contribute to that, or maybe creating a space for my own stance. Yeah, once I say, but it failed to sort of, but it failed to show or display or recognize the significance of this and this and that, I am showing my stance. I'm saying like the study is not sort of comprehensive, and I'm adding my own ideas. Yeah. So the reader here will be prepared for my own ideas. The reader here knows that I am in rejection of the results from Smith's study, but will be prepared definitely for my own ideas, definitely. Yeah. So we have to, another thing that we have to be careful about is, of course, using a balanced academic tone, yeah, to avoid showing bias, etc. Okay, so, and I have a piece of writing here from one of Highland's texts. What writers' purposes are served by Highland's stance projection in this extract? So Highland here is using certain devices like hedging, like etc. Some of the devices that we have just come across and discussed. this time it's not, it's just sort of identifying the linguistic resources that Highland is using. This time is I'm asking for the communicative purpose of these devices. Yeah, so take a minute to read it and walk through that. Inshallah, work through it together, inshallah, but I'm giving you a couple of minutes to look at it first. Okay, so it's not proven. Right, okay, so my claim has been that effective academic writing depends on rhetorical decisions about interpersonal intrusion, and I have suggested a model which attempts to show how writers select and deploy community-sensitive linguistic resources to represent themselves, their positions, and their readers. Okay, so what do we have in this sentence? The first sentence. I have to read it. What do we have? Okay. Okay, it's claim. Suggesting what? Yes. Claim, yes. Claim, that's right. Yeah, my claim, yes. So the writer is saying what? When the writer says my claim has been that effective writing, the writer is saying that I am opening the floor for discussion. You might have different opinions, but this is my claim. Yeah, it is my claim. Don't take it as a fact, it is my claim. Okay, and the writer, of course, also Highland here is using is sort of, his language is hedged, meaning it is weakened a little bit. I mean, he's not saying my study, but he's saying my hypothesis. Thank you so much. It's hypothetical. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So he's opening the floor to discussion. It's like the floor is open to discussion. It's like I'm inviting contribution from you. He's saying that. Okay. And anything else? My claim and persuasive, a bit impressive. Do we have persuasive here? Yes, a bit impressive. It is persuasive, definitely. Yes, yeah. When he says my claim, I'll be prepared to listen to him. Definitely. Yeah. I'll be prepared to listen to once I see the word claim, I'll be prepared to read through and sort of form my own opinion and idea. Yeah. Any more words? Any more devices used to show stance? Okay, the use of the pronoun here indicate that it is not based on a present experience. Yeah, which pronoun? My claim is personalization. Yes, yeah. I mean, Highland himself says in sort of soft sciences like language pedagogy, etc., we can actually use personal pronouns. He says so. He says we can use personal pronouns to sort of claim property of work. Eloquence in presentation. Yes, there is. Yeah. Yeah, the personal pronoun is sort of, because using personal pronouns sort of draws your readers very close to you. Yeah, it sort of brings your readers into your space. Yeah. So he says in soft sciences are not like hard sciences. Hard sciences like physics, etc., chemistry, etc. We cannot use personal pronouns, but in soft sciences like humanities, language pedagogy, etc., we can use personal pronouns. Okay, so yes, using of the present perfect, that means it is, yes, it's up to now, definitely, yes. Present, using the present. So it's still relevant. Any more? Any more words that you picked up, like for example, importing verbs? Yes. Please don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. I don't know about personal pronouns, but Highland says so. Highland says so. I've never used them in my writing, honestly. You may use personal pronouns. I don't know, but that's not my claim. That is Highland's claim. Okay, so there is a reporting verb here I have suggested. So the writer keeps saying like the floor is open to you guys to sort of, add your own contribution. The writer says the floor is open. This research is not closed yet. The findings are not finalized. Yeah, they're not like final. You can continue doing research and studies in the same topic. The writer is saying that, and that's why he says I have suggested like this. This is not a final thing. It is not a final thing. Okay. A model which attempts, look at the word attempts, yeah? He's saying like, I've not done my best, it is just, it's an attempt, because you can also have your own attempts. The writer is saying you can also have your own attempts, yeah? Okay, yeah. Okay, so look at the word however here. Look at the word however. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of the word however here? What communicative, because somebody's going to say like it's a contrasting conjunction or connective word, but what is the communicative purpose of it? I mean, what is the writer trying to say here? Mm-hmm. The writer is saying, because the writer says after the word however, the writer says it's necessarily a partial one. He says the account I've provided, he says the account is a partial one. So he says, I have provided an account, but once the writer says, however, me as a reader is going to be prepared for something entirely, yes, different. Thank you so much, Howard. Yes, it's only showing one side of it. Yes, it's only showing one side of it. Yeah. So the writer is very cautious with his language. And that's what we should do as academic writers. The writer is very cautious with his language. And actually, the more writers are cautious with their language, the more expert they have, the more expertise they have. I mean, Highland, of course, we know Highland. I mean, he's one of the prominent figures. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the prominent figures in academic writing. He's one of the prominent figures. And actually through his writing, through his own writing, because he's setting a model, he's leading by example. Through his own writing, he's sort of teaching us how to do it, how to do it. Yes, yes. So the writer prepares us as readers, yeah? So he's helping us understand, his writing better and better by using this, signposting language. And then it says representing only the broadcast categories of rhetorical function. Okay, and then here he says they are certainly more fine-grained. Look at these words. It says they are certainly more, and he's saying to the reader, it is your job to go and find it. So he's inviting his readers to dig deep into this topic and sort of carry out more research. Topic. He says there are certainly more fine-grained, distinctive, distinctions to be made among these resources. So he's inviting more research. He's actually inviting, instead of saying like more research is needed, because many writers will say like they talk about their research limitations. Many writers will say, and obviously more research is needed in this scope. I mean, instead of saying that, and these phrases get repeated a lot, Highland here says, they are certainly more fine-grained, and I'm inviting you to go out there and do research. Yes, narrowing discussion to a certain point. Yeah. Which are likely to offer more insights. Look at the word insights. It is also a linguistic thing. I mean, it does serve a communicative purpose, you know, the choice of the word insight. So I'm inviting your insights, I'm inviting your ideas. It's you know, I'm inviting your free thinking into the rhetorical options available to us. Okay. Okay, and then I have another one. I think the second part of it. Okay, the second part of it is I'll give minutes to look at it, and then we'll discuss it together. Okay, so any suggestions? Any kind of words that are helping us, the writer is using to help us have a better and a clearer and a more elaborate picture of what he wants to say? And his stance. Yeah. We have the word likely as yes. We have the word likely, yes. Yes, the word likely, yes. Yeah, I like it. Yes, well done, Reem. There is the word likely, there is the word suggest, and unlike. Yes, I mean, they show that the writer, for example, the word likely, which is, are likely to cluster, where these features are likely to cluster. So the writer is showing his stance towards his own ideas, Obvious limitations, yes. Yeah. The writer is saying that, you know, that this study has got a lot of, you know, has got limitations. It has got obvious limitations, and I am inviting you to observe and notice these limitations. There's the word unable, and unlike, unable to provide. Yes, a corpus study is, for example, a corpus study is unable to provide where these features are likely to cluster. Yeah, so he's showing his own stance by using the adjective unable. Usually found, yes, usually found, using the frequency adverb usually. The writer said it is something that is usually found, it is common. Several studies suggested the word that reporting verb suggested. Yes, yeah. So the writer is saying it's a suggestion. It is not a fact. The writer is saying by using the reporting verb suggested, the writer is saying, showing his own stance by telling us what? By telling us, this is my own understanding, but you might understand something different. He's saying that. Yeah. Yeah, several studies suggested. And so the kind of approach I have adopted. So the writer here is not just showing stance towards other people's ideas, the writer is showing his stance towards his own work. Because what is the purpose of showing this stance? He's telling us about limitations. He's telling us about there are more richer and more interesting insights, etc., etc. The author is showing us this particular stance because he's opening the floor for us to contribute our own insights and our own. He's inviting us from the topic. He's thinking like this topic is not finished yet, and this research is not comprehensive, and I'm inviting you guys to have more research on the same topic. That is the communicative purpose of this particular stance that he shows. Yeah. Okay, so I've got some points that I'm coming to the end of my session. I think it is important to remember that to make a choice discourse that serves our communicative purpose, always we should have in mind our communicative purpose, what exactly we want to say to the reader, and avoid confusing the reader, avoid vagueness by jumping from one side to another, by using, for example, the linguistic devices that shows that you are in agreement with a certain idea, but then further in your writing, you use a certain device, linguistic device that shows disagreement. So this is very creative, vagueness and incoherence in your writing, definitely. And when you use resources to back up, when you use quotes, like Halima says, we have to use quotes. When you use quotes, to back up your claims, it's important to say how it supports your claim. So we do not just put a quote there and leave it, because you have to say how it's serving you, how it's serving your purpose. Because if you just put it there and leave it, okay, it is you're just leaving it. It's going to be an interpretation. I mean, the reader is going to just think of it in any way they choose to. So use resources that show how they support your claim. Show how they support your claim. Okay, don't just say that I have reviewed literature and this is an evidence that I have reviewed literature. I'm using quotes. No, quotes are not used to show as evidence you reading literature. They are used to serve your purpose. They are used to serve your purpose. So use them to serve your purpose. Yeah, I think that is something that is. I think it's important to remember that we don't just go through literature and just pick and choose quotes and just put them there in the middle to the supervisors that we have reviewed, because the supervisor will say, go and read, to show you that I have read, I am using these quotes. No, it is not like that. It is using the quotes to support your claims. They serve your communicative purpose. Okay, and I have talked, this session is about the author stance and how the authors use language to show where they stand in relation to the ideas they discuss and in relation to the ideas that they come across in literature review. But I think showing stance is something that is just part of life, something that we do every day. For example, in speaking, it's natural to show stance, I think. I mean, if you disagree with somebody, you're going to show that in your speaking, don't you? I mean, and writing is not entirely from that. Writing is similar to speaking. It is, both of them are communication channels, aren't they? So I mean, we should remember to show stance by talking the language that we know in a way that serves our purpose, I think. Okay, does that make sense to you? Does it make sense? Yeah, and that is recommended reading. Because that comes to stance. Okay, now the floor is open. I'm going to borrow from Dr. Basim discourse. The floor is open to discussion, comments, and questions.
All right.
Got about 10 minutes for that.
Not a All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Summaya, for this very informative and helpful presentation. I really like the inclusion of meta-discursal functions here in your presentation. Thank you so much. And thank you all for attending this workshop. So now I'm gonna share with you 3 links: the evaluation form, and our YouTube channel, and how to make an appointment or online appointment with one of our great writing specialists. So now I think we still have about 10 minutes for questions or comments. And please, you can just open your mic or post it here in the chat. And thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Summaya, and thank you all for attending the workshop.
Okay, can we say that the research is acknowledged? Somebody answered a question. Can we say that the research is acknowledging the data about the phase of the limitations of so to give a clear picture about? Yes, Awad, I mean, I think the writer, the writer, when the writer acknowledges the limitations of his studies, the writer is inviting further research. The writer is saying, like, this is not the end of it. You go and do your research. The writer is saying that. Yeah? Because research is an endless thing. I mean, there's no final point that researchers do reach in their studies and their investigation. Yeah. So there's always room for, for more knowledge and for more contributions. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Okay. Does serve the purpose when you again to raise expectations. I don't know if today's session has sort of met your expectations. There's something that we're looking for and found. Again, I mean, I have not brought you any knowledge about, for instance, about this words. It is employing in a way to serve a medical purpose. Somebody's mic is open. Question?
All right, so I think since there are no more questions or comments, so
a nice cup of tea, right?
Yeah. Yeah, all right, so let's end this presentation, wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dr. Summaya. Thank you all for attending the workshop, and stay tuned. Inshallah, this Wednesday we'll have another workshop, which is going to be about writing the discussion chapter for your thesis. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and share the channel also with your colleagues or your friends. Okay, thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your night.